Did you know that 40% of people, that's 4 out of 10, do not travel due to travel stress? In this episode, let's find out what this means and how we can overcome travel anxiety. Hi, this is Melissa here at Ready to Go Melissa, where we discuss travel hacks, information, reviews, so that you can plan your very own trips and create unforgettable experiences. So quick note, I'm not a mental health professional, though I do have an undergraduate degree in psychology, but I'm not today giving any type of medical advice. This is just me sharing the most common types of travel stressors and ways that I've found helpful in coping with them. Okay, so there is a lot of information regarding travel stress, and it seems to be an issue that impacts a lot of people who may want to plan a family trip or have never traveled anywhere, and this prevents them from actually just going out there and seeing the world. And of course, me being me, it's not something I've ever really thought about or considered. So there's a lot of information about travel stress, and I will be referring back to my notes quite frequently because I want to make sure I give you correct information and helpful tips. So the idea for this video came about when I read some information issued by the Blue Cross of Canada, and I'll include the link of all my references in the description below. And the Blue Cross is actually one of the main travel insurance providers in Canada. So they did a study where they found that 40% of Canadians say that travel stressors are preventing them from taking a trip. So that's 4 out of 10 people who literally do not feel comfortable visiting new places or even going on vacation. And me being me, I found it shocking. It's something I never actually considered because for myself, planning trips, going on holiday, discovering new countries, going on excursions, all of this is very enjoyable, the planning part as well as the experience part. And it's really just a whole lot of fun, and I see it as more of an all-around adventure. Hence this channel. And when challenges happen during my travels, as they do for many people, I mean, I've lost my luggage, I've gotten very ill on a trip, I've had canceled flights. All these can be very annoying, but it's never actually stopped me from going anywhere. Now, WebMD actually has a medically reviewed section on travel anxiety, so this is obviously a widespread issue that affects many people. So I thought we should talk about it. I've broken it down into 8 different categories of travel stressors. We'll see what they are and some tips on how to cope with them. And at the end of this video, I'll also give you my thoughts on something very important, which is choosing your travel buddies. So stay tuned. Okay, travel stressor number 1, leaving your comfort zone. This can affect someone traveling for the first time or people who have traveled before but are visiting a part of the world they've never been to. So if we look at this from a historical perspective, traveling for leisure, also called tourism, is something quite recent. Now, historically, the humans who went to far-off lands were explorers or tradespeople who traveled mainly to find new business routes, new territories, or as part of a mission. And adventure and danger were inherently a part of that. So wanting to remain in a comfort zone is a very normal feeling for any person. So my tip on managing this if you want to travel is to bring some elements of your comfort zone with you. For many people nowadays, that could simply mean having their smartphone with them. It can be a small stuffed animal or maybe a diffuser with some essential oils. When you are abroad, if you're feeling out of sorts or homesick, maybe go to a fast food place or a coffee shop that's familiar to you, such as McDonald's or Starbucks. That can help. Even if you just grab a coffee or a fry and you just sit there for 20 minutes, it can be a quick and cheap way to feel better. Stay connected with friends and family. Do a video call if that's possible. Share your experience on what you did that day or something interesting that you discovered. If you have a laptop or an iPad with you, watch an episode of your favorite show when you're back at the hotel. Travel stressor number 2, culture shock and safety. Now the key here, as I always say, is research, research, research. Even the most adventurous travelers, those who climb Mount Everest, do tons of research before leaving their house. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I am a big fan of the Lonely Planet books because they do offer quite a bit of information about any culture shocks you may experience and any safety measures you should be taking. Watch videos. There are hundreds and sometimes thousands of YouTube videos available about the countries that you want to visit. With all the free information available to us nowadays, there's really no excuse to be traveling around clueless. Find out for each city you're going to what are the safest neighborhoods to stay in and which ones to avoid. If you're going to be using public transportation, make sure that your hotel or your apartment is walking distance to a stop. Now, if you're not a seasoned traveler, I strongly recommend to plan most of your activities in advance so that you can also figure out how long it takes to get from one place to another. Leave space in your itinerary for free time. Sometimes you may just want to sit in a park, have a snack, or even just take a nap. For people who are not regular travelers, I do recommend to make sure you're able to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep so that you're well rested and alert. If you're enjoying this video so far, please give it a big like, and when you're done, share it to your socials so that your friends and family can learn from it as well. Number 3, packing and luggage. What to pack, how much to pack. Now, this can be particularly stressful for people traveling as a family and or those on a more strict budget due to the extra cost of check-in luggage. Now, packing really depends on the type of trip that you're taking. Now, if you're going to be visiting multiple cities, taking trains, and the main point of your trip is sightseeing, in that case, I strongly recommend figuring out a way to just bring one carry-on. You don't want to be dragging big luggage on and off trains. Done it, not fun. And if you're staying in a more local hotel or apartment, you may want to find out what floor you're on and if there is an elevator, because sometimes there just isn't. So big luggage can be a problem in certain circumstances. Now, if you're going to be renting a car to move around or you're staying in one location for a longer period of time, then check-in luggage shouldn't be a problem. So I have 3 general tips for packing. First, build a packing list and save it. You'll want to add to it or change it as you get closer to your trip. If you don't travel often, start packing your luggage 1 to 2 weeks prior to your trip so that you don't stress about it and you have time to go get some additional items as needed. And third tip, and I've mentioned this multiple times before, you need to get air tags and put one in every single piece of luggage, backpack, purse, etc. This is one of my 3 must-have travel items. You can check out that video later, and I'll put an Amazon link for air tags in the description as well. Number 4, airport anxiety. Let's be real, the vast majority of airports around the world are not fun. Now, there are some exceptions, such as the Singapore airport with its beautiful indoor gardens, but most of them are just a place you want to get in and out of as quickly as possible. They can be crowded, you need to stand in line at various checkpoints. Everything you want to buy in an airport is very expensive. You have different procedures in different countries, etc. This is already stressful when you're traveling by yourself. And if you're traveling with children or a larger group of people, it just can take a toll. So what can we do to make our airport experience a little more pleasant? Well, first, you can avoid crowds if you book early flights, meaning before 8 a.m. Do your check-in online if available. Pack some snacks. If you have the budget for it or with certain rewards categories, you can see if you can book a lounge, and wear comfortable clothes and shoes. Number 5, stressing about being late or missing your flight or your cruise. Most of the time, we can avoid this risk by following a few simple rules. Get to the airport 2 to 3 hours in advance. And nowadays, I find that the suggested timing of arrival at the airport is often written when you purchase your ticket. If you're abroad, find out the different ways you can get to the airport. Now, I know that budget is often a factor, but you don't want to be switching buses or metro lines multiple times or using cheap shuttles that may be unreliable, because the goal here is to get to the airport on time. My recommendation is pick the most straightforward means of transport to get from your last location to the airport. Now, when it comes to cruises, without exception, always fly in the day before. This way, if your flight is significantly delayed or canceled, you do have that additional 24-hour time period as a buffer to get you there on time. Number 6, this is a good one, fear of flying. So I actually researched this one a little more because it is something that I actually have anxiety about depending on the flight. Some people get anxiety from being in an enclosed space, so it's more of a claustrophobia. Others don't like being seated so close to many other people, and it's more of a personal space issue. And for someone else, it might be that they suffer from motion sickness. And for some, such as myself, it's more of that general feeling of having an unfortunate accident. Now, we've all heard it, and we all know statistically that flying is the safest form of transport. Okay, so when we say flying is the safest form of transport, what does that actually mean in numbers terms? Well, according to a Harvard study that was done back in 2017, the odds of a plane crash are 1 in 1.2 million versus the odds of dying in a car crash, which are 1 in 5,000. But most of us just get into a car pretty much every day without ever thinking about it. So logically, we know that flying is safe, but look, when that turbulence hits, it freaks me out. Now, what I found helps me is reading about how planes are built to actually handle all that turbulence and watching videos about pilots explaining it. Like when you see the wings sort of bobbing up and down, that's a mechanism that is made to absorb the shock of the turbulence. So what else can we actually do in practical terms to help with the fear of flying? Now, it may be worth spending a little extra to be able to choose an ideal seat on the plane. What does that mean? Now, going back to the different types of fear of flying, if you're more claustrophobic, for instance, picking an aisle seat can give you that extra leeway so that you can stand up more easily and more frequently if you want to just walk around. If looking out the window relaxes you, then pick a window seat. Now, with regards to turbulence, seats located towards the front of the plane experience less turbulence than those located all the way in the back. On very long flights, my husband and I are the two weirdos who choose the very last row just because we like to be close to the bathroom and the galley. It just gives that little extra feeling of freedom to walk around if needed. Then obviously listening to music, reading a book, or watching a movie can help to distract you and pass the time. I'm curious to know, what do you do to pass the time on a plane? Please put your experiences or suggestions in the comments below. Now, at the end of the day, if your fear of flying is paralyzing for you and it's preventing you from taking trips that you may want to take, think about maybe seeing a therapist. There are therapists who are specifically trained to deal with fear of flying. Travel stressor number 7, the risk of illness or injury. Now, if you're someone who travels often, I am sure that you have established that this can and will happen at some point. This is a real risk. Anyone can fall ill or get injured at any point in their life, no matter where they are. Now, with travel, there are some specific circumstances where the risk becomes greater. If you're traveling somewhere at a higher altitude, you may get altitude sickness. If you're traveling to a country where the food is very different from what you're used to, that can make you ill. And you want to consider, depending on the country you're traveling to, whether public drinking water is safe or not. The risk of injury is obviously greater if you're doing more adventurous excursions, such as scuba diving, hiking, or mountain climbing. So what can we do to mitigate these risks? First and foremost, I go back to my point about doing research. Any predominant risks or discomforts that travelers tend to experience in a particular location will often be indicated in those travel guides and videos. If you have a sensitive stomach, you definitely want to avoid street food and stick to packaged snacks and sit-down restaurants. Now, in terms of drinking water, bottled water is always the way to go. The one exception is in Europe, where in many countries they have public drinking fountains and that water is safe to drink, and you'll see people filling up their water bottles and drinking straight from those fountains. Anywhere else in the world, including North America, I would just stick to bottled water. Now, sometimes you're in a farmer's market or a public market and they're selling local fruits and vegetables. One thing you want to avoid is buying a fruit or a vegetable that is pre-cut, because the knife they've used or the water used can be contaminated. So you just want to buy it whole and make sure to wash it before eating it. Now, if you're traveling to a developing country, you may want to see a doctor or visit a travel clinic beforehand where they can prescribe you some antibiotics that you can bring with you just in case. And the most important piece of advice I can give you for peace of mind related to travel illness or injury is to get your travel insurance. Now, make sure that your travel insurance includes not only medical care, but also repatriation to your country should that be needed. Now, the cost of travel insurance does need to be factored in to your travel budget. I would say this is a non-negotiable item when you travel. Don't leave home without it. I do have a full video about travel insurance and why you should get it, so I'll link it at the end of this one. And number 8, travel stressor, jet lag. So what is jet lag? Well, basically when we travel to a different time zone, our circadian rhythm, which is our internal clock, just goes out of whack. So jet lag causes many symptoms, including fatigue, headaches, insomnia, a lack of appetite, mood swings. It's not fun, and we just want to get over it quickly, especially when we've arrived to our new exciting destination. Now, jet lag affects people differently. Some people are over it in a day, and for others, it can take several days. Now, for myself, I do 3 very specific things to get over jet lag quickly. First, I do things to adapt immediately to the new time zone. Eat meals, stay awake, and go to bed at the actual times of the place I'm in. Now, it takes some effort to do this as you arrive, but I've really found that this is the best and quickest way to get over jet lag. And it's also, when I was a flight attendant, what was recommended to us during our training. Second, drink plenty of water. Air travel makes us dehydrated, so it's very important to drink a lot of water while you're on your flight. And also, some people tend to avoid drinking in order to avoid public bathrooms as much as possible. So when you arrive, drink as much water as you can. Third, if I'm having trouble sleeping, I do take melatonin. This is all natural. Now, if you've never taken it or if you have any questions, speak to your doctor about it before traveling. So those are 8 common travel stressors and some tips on how to handle them. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, choosing your travel companions is probably one of the most important factors that will affect your travel anxiety. So how do we choose travel companions wisely? Well, first, if you're more of a stressed person, choose travel buddies that are easygoing and flexible people. See if you share similar interests in terms of activities and sightseeing before planning the trip. Like if one person wants to spend 80% of their trip laying on the beach or at the hotel pool, and you're someone who loves sightseeing most of the time, this may not be the best travel buddy for you unless you're okay doing those other activities on your own. So this is something you want to figure out before you actually start booking anything. Now, once you've chosen your travel companion, discuss and plan your itinerary together. Now, whether you're traveling with your significant other or a friend or just an acquaintance or a group of people, you will have to make some concessions in terms of activities that you want to do. Before booking a trip with anyone, make sure that you have similar travel budgets. And there is a more sensitive issue, which is to make sure that the other person also has either a free and clear credit card or enough credit to get them out of trouble should anything happen. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be stuck paying for it. Same reasoning, make sure that your travel buddies have travel insurance. So I hope you appreciated this video. Now, to make sure you never miss out on new videos, please subscribe to the channel right now. It just takes 1 second. It's free, and turn on the notifications bell. Now, for more travel planning hacks and info, please click on my playlist right here. This way, you're always ready to go.